All right, how's everybody doing? All 27 or 31 of you, I'm not sure. I have multiple windows open. I have a YouTube window open, seeing if everything starts off okay and if the intro picks up and things are rolling. This is also being broadcast on Utreon. And if any of you want to just check it out there, you want to say, you know what, hell with YouTube for a minute. I'm going to go check out another platform. They're a much smaller platform, but I've got to give them some credit. They have been there for me. In February, when my channel was nuked, this channel was completely vaporized on YouTube. But at the same time, 100% of my content was on Utreon. So I did put a link both in the description and also in the pinned chat if you guys just want to give it a shot. They're trying to, draw some traffic over there, get people to actually watch and, build the platform. And oh, God only knows. With my experiences on YouTube, I could definitely use them built up. Everybody built up. Rumble, I hope to be streaming there sometime soon. I don't have that locked down yet, but I hope to be there. And everywhere else. And let me see, who do we have here? A job done well. Yeah, I appreciate Viva. He's been so generous with promos and everything else that I can't expect him to necessarily say it, all the time. I mean, whew, he's been more kind than I could ever imagine. And yes, Utreon has a great UI, and I actually had neglected it for a while. They got an app in too, and the app's pretty slick. I mean, it seems to run very smoothly. Everything else is there. I really hope that people can go over there and get a chance to participate. I think, oh, it looks like I have 14 watching over there. They've got a chat function and everything else. So again, really just trying to kind of give it a bump and see what we can do. They have another feature where I can work with other creators and you can split up like the collaboration. So it's actually built into the platform. And I think they're the only ones who are doing that. So enough, let me see, on that pitch. I want to start out today. I like to start the show out, and I want to start with something nice. It could be fun. It could be, it could be anything. And I think that today's show, I'm going to start out with, dare I say, something romantic. I mean, we have a couple and they care so deeply for each other that, when you're with somebody you really love and somebody you care about, you can almost complete each other's sentences. Well, we have an example of that possibly going on right now in federal court. Love is finishing each other's sentences. So while one of them didn't kill himself, the other one can at least finish a sentence. And this was put up on my locals by the great illustrious Gavin Stone. Am I demonetized yet? Good question. Is this going to be the earliest demonetization of all? Hard to know, because what happens is I forget to look. So hold on, let me scroll over to some windows and see what is the demonetization window looking like. Survey says, yep, demonetized immediately. Do I request review or not? Let me put it up to a vote. Should I bother requesting review, or should I go with not monetization? Hope that, you guys give me a little support, things like that, and share like the shooting that, the Chad Reed shooting and the video that's been going around about the Michigan shooting where the kids are hiding in the classroom. If I start to talk a lot about shooting, then they're going to uphold it. And let me see, make them work. That sounds good, Ziggy, on its surface, but the problem is this, and not everybody completely understands it. When YouTube does the little demonetization game, you submit it for manual review, and then if they disagree with you, that means if you submit another video, it's going to take even longer because you're no longer trustworthy. So if every time I go ahead and request review and it always gets approved, then I've got a course and I can say, hey, my video is good. And if I upload a normal video, it'll monetize to begin with. But if I play along, and then they say, nope, sorry, you're wrong. Nope, sorry, you're wrong. Then I don't get the money. And this is the mind trip that YouTube has over everybody. Is it is literally forcing us into a demonetization scenario. So just to explain that's why we all go on and on about locals, etc. Is it's very, very frustrating. And yep, everybody needs to go to Rumble. Everything I have is now syncing to Rumble. At least all recent stuff is syncing there. I'm hoping to have live streaming available, but I will also tell you that in the time that I was on Rumble, the money we're talking about rounding error difference in pay, to be just forthright with you. I think that when I was there, I got to a 4,000 plus subscribers and 100 video, probably 100 videos, whatever, and I think I had $20 total. So it's again, we're doing it for love, but it would be cool to have something. I want the documentation proving their First Amendment violation, though. Well, technically, it's a private corporation. Is it a First Amendment violation? And there is no documentation. And I see what people are saying. The only documentation is we found that this content violated our community guidelines. Okay. It's very, very vague. Ziggy, it is not on Rumble right now. I cannot stream on Rumble live at this point. I hope to. But it will be there. I'm definitely on Locals Reese. I can't simul stream there though. They don't have enough bandwidth to do it to begin with, and there's other difficulties. They don't have a proper port for that. I have hacked around it to do my show that I do with Nate on most Sundays, but that is very specific to locals. So now I know I'm talking about a lot of inside shop, and people are probably going, "Oh my God, I don't care about this. This is crazy. This is boring." And dude, get a life. So I completely understand that. I am supposed to be providing some value. So while we are at it, our guest co-host, Darth Crypto, Alison, will not be making it tonight. Her horse is incredibly sick, and I'm feeling really bad. So everybody, please keep her horse and Alison in your thoughts. Her name's Sassy. She's turns 29 years old, and Alison has been with her almost her complete life. Okay, one more thing on that. Scott Adams does stream simultaneously to locals, but he does have multiple devices, and he is by himself. He's not doing an interview. He doesn't have a co-host. And I don't believe he's usually sharing on locals. He's just talking at a screen, writing on a board, and things like that. So it kind of throws it away, or it makes it more difficult to make it the same, if you understand. Okay, so as a courtesy to our co-host, I shared a little bit of love. I think I should share a warning that he put out earlier, because this is a very serious problem. We have a couple dangers running around right now, and those are a red SUV and Alec Baldwin's gun. Both of these seem to operate on themselves. So be careful, everyone, wherever you are, that there could be a red SUV out there gunning for you, or Alec Baldwin's gun. Because, keep in mind, Alec Baldwin did say that the trigger wasn't pulled. So maybe it is CGI. Maybe it never really happened. I don't know. Let's look into that scenario. The trigger was never pulled. Let's go ahead and see here. This is going around, and ABC is milking the hell out of this. So let us look at what Alex has to say about the situation with the illustrious and George Stephanopoulos, who worked on the Clinton campaign. and I can watch the wheel turning and turning and turning. Isn't bandwidth fun? Have you guys run into this before? This is not the first time. It's like Twitter says, oh, you're going to blow this up full screen? We can't have that. We can only let you play it straight here.
Liked by everyone who worked with. And
for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. The trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger for the trigger to be pulled?
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never.
What trigger to be pulled?
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them.
For some reason, I thought he said that the trigger was never pulled. Wow. Okay, so, there we go. There's some proof. Back to Darth Crypto's tweet. There's a gun running around out there. The trigger's not even pulled. It just shoots people. Good times. Well, let's go ahead and look at that. Well, I am not being fair. I should then discuss what I mean about the SUV. What do I mean that there's an SUV without a driver that you should be aware? Well, let me see. The Washington Post said after SUV slammed into Wisconsin parade and killed 5. Forbes said driver of SUV in parade tragedy. At least they gave there's a driver. Insider said SUV smashes into crowds at parade. NBC News, SUV plows into a Wisconsin Christmas parade. JS Online, car plows through Christmas parade. I think this is Wisconsin. SUV drives into Christmas parade killing. Deadline. What? I guess it's Waukesha Christmas parade tragedy as SUV plows into. Let me see. NPR, 5 dead and 40 injured after SUV tore through Waukesha. Or Waukesha. I'm never going to say it right, so sue me, folks. USA Today, Waukesha parade, 5 dead, over 40 injured. After, holy shit, it's that SUV again. I was just sharing your tweet. Darth, how's it going, man?
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Did you see the little sound clip from Alec discussing that? No, he never pulled the trigger.
Wait, from Baldwin?
Yeah.
Are you talking about my tweets?
Well, no. I just played the sound clip. Trigger was never pulled.
So I did a couple posts from those because I clipped. They only have a promo so far from the interview.
Yeah.
I'm already ripping him apart just from the promo, so you can imagine what I'm going to do when we get the full interview.
Oh, dude, I've got body language experts.
Yeah, just from the promo alone, I already have. I had that clipped out where I said the Pieta Long Colt 45 is a single action firearm, requires substantial user input to fire, meaning you have to cock the hammer first before you can even fire it. Claiming he didn't pull the trigger is a lie that defies the laws of physics. Secondly, he just admitted that he's fully aware of the dangers of pointing a gun at someone because he said, I would never point a gun at somebody, which is funny because he's essentially conceding that he knew that pointing the gun at somebody was exceedingly dangerous. And now he's just claiming that he didn't do it, which obviously we know isn't true. And then the second portion was I said, Hollywood lawyer, government friends aside, this is tremendously stupid. If his protection spell ever wears off one day and he's rightfully charged, I hope the jury hears how he's the victim. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. Screw the dead lady, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
That was the other part he said. He said,
I'm trying to figure it out, though, because,
like
okay.
I've
done six episodes of just talking about that that case. And I am flabbergasted with all the smoke and dust that his crisis negotiation team has thrown up. Who the hell is letting him do this? Because, if you look at part of the reason it's been so confusing is he's got a crisis team out there. And you could see the, manipulations early. Barnes was talking about it. And then when you look at it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. 1 second. It's it's the armorer. And then there's another second, and all of a sudden it's Dave Halls, who said it was cold gun. And then I have Mark Robert, who works in Hollywood, who said, I've never heard the term cold gun before. And okay, so obviously he hasn't been on every set and everything, but then George Clooney comes out on Mark Maron and said, I've never heard the term cold gun before.
Yeah, did you see the clip of Will Smith too? He did his.
No, I haven't.
Will Smith, well, he didn't say anything about this specifically, but there's a clip of him. They were on the Bad Boys set, and the armorer was going over a couple weapons and was handing it to Will Smith, pointed it at him, and his reflexes were instantaneous. He jumps back, pops back, like immediately responded. He checked it, cleared it, checked the chamber, showed everybody else that it was clear instantaneously. So he has the instincts, but also he's trained well.
I thought you were going to say he punched the armor for pointing the freaking weapon at him.
No,
which
he probably should have. But his reaction was just impressive how quickly he reacted. You could tell that he's had good training.
I'm sure, and others. I mean, well, Clooney, apparently he was friends with John Eric Hexum, who was the first, gunshot case. And that one, I would just say, I'm not trying to besmirch the guy, but he was just he was playing around, goofing off, and he died. You don't stick a gun against your head with a blank and go, what happens?
Exactly.
It's hard to hold anybody responsible for that one except for him. Then the Brandon Lee incident, that one is crazy. Do you know how that went down?
I remember when it happened, but I never actually looked at the details of it, surprisingly.
Somebody did a really good breakdown on it, and it is one of those confluence of circumstances that's so odd that it's hard not to say, okay, yeah, it's kind of a no fault. It's hard to know. Essentially, the gun was a revolver, a big ass revolver, and they wanted dummy rounds in there because when they show it from the front, they want to see the points of the bullets inside of the gun, right? So they're acting with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they had replaced the dummy round. Okay, let me explain a little further. The dummy rounds they created were made from live ammo. And the way they make a dummy round is they pull out the bullet, dump all the gunpowder. There's another term for it. But anyway, they dump out the gunpowder, put that on, and then they fire the primer out. So that way there's a bullet, primer's already fired and that. So that way it's just a bullet. There's no way it's going to go anywhere. Well, apparently one of the dummy rounds that was in the revolver, they never fired the primer. So it didn't have any gunpowder, but it was just enough of a charge that the bullet left the cartridge and was in the barrel.
I thought it was, the little bit I did remember, I thought it was, they had blanks, but there was foreign material in the barrel.
Right. It was a dummy. It was a dummy round or an actual bullet from the dummy round in the barrel. And then when they put in the blank to, continue the scene, it popped the dummy round and into him. And that is really, really, really crazy. And the moral is that if a gun ever sounds weird or anything ever happens, you should check it, disassemble it, all of it.
It's a really simple thing to do. I mean, I could be a procedure on set. I could be an armorer on set for movies. It is that easy. It's the simplest thing in the world not to kill somebody unnecessarily with a weapon. If you don't point a gun at somebody, you cannot kill them. There's one rule. Don't point it at somebody and you won't kill them. It's really not that hard.
It's a good rule.
The number of errors Alec Baldwin, we don't even know the details yet. There's stories and rumors, but
and that's the problem. They throw in so much. We don't even know. When we first were covering it, we had the impression that Dave Halls picked up the gun off of a property cart and handed it to him because he was impatient, running behind, whatever.
Yeah.
Now, as time has gone on, the armorer said, "Oh, hell no, I checked it and it was given to Halls from the armorer." It's like, well, wait a minute. And then she was put on to another task because she was also another job, which is, majorly questionable. Why the hell with it? So, and every time you turn around, there's another story. There's another story. It's a insane deal.
And now the newest story is he didn't pull the trigger. It just went off.
Right. Which I don't get. why in the hell would anybody let him actually say that? That
This is the whole interview thing. Is I mean, that's
Oh.
what he's protected. I mean, he's protected by the regime, so he can essentially do and say whatever he wants, and he can shoot whoever he wants, and nothing's going to happen to him. Everybody knows that, which is
I
why
guess.
it's just
Get
accepted
away
that he's
with
going
our
to be able
best
to
deal
do
of the
this.
season at the
and
Hyundai
nobody
Getaway
can
Sales.
touch him. Was
True.
that-
Well, and it's I hate to say it, but it's a Soros appointed DA in Santa Fe.
Yeah, of course.
And-
Well, one day, people like this could potentially. That's why I made a joke and I said if his protection spell ever wears off, because it's theoretically possible. So
Mhm.
why would you put that out there? Why would you set a trap for yourself? Who knows? Something could happen. I don't know. I can't imagine something happening where he could end up being in the proverbial crosshairs. But when you're protected like that, you should be thankful. You shouldn't just throw and rub it in everybody's face.
Right. Don't
He's
spike
doing
the damn football.
He's spiking the football. Exactly. He's rubbing it in everybody's face, saying that you could be involved in a shooting where you're, shooting somebody who's attacking you, and everybody's debating it, and you're waiting for the hammer to drop. Is the attorney general going to announce that they're trying you for murder? Meanwhile, he blatantly shoots somebody. Everybody involved from the set lies, gives a different version of events. He goes and publicly states that he didn't pull the trigger, and he didn't point it at the person he obviously pointed it at when he obviously pulled the trigger, and concedes that he wouldn't do it because he knows that it's dangerous and would likely result in death.
It's like the immaculate conception of a bullet, right? I mean, it just it's like your tweet, the SUV that drove itself. Now,
Yeah, I saw you had that up when I came down.
oh yeah, and then I was just reading off all the headlines: SUV, and then it's horrible. So speaking of recovering and being covered, you know that Chris Como has been sent packing, if you will, at least indefinitely suspended, which is probably leading to termination. But good news, somebody else is there available to talk about it with Jeffrey Toobin. So there's no irony here, folks. You have Chris Como. Why is he suspended? Oh, because he's covering up or working with his brother because of sexual allegations. So
that's what Tucker said. Tucker said he essentially got suspended for the one thing he should never be suspended for: looking out for your family, backing up your brother, using what connections you have to help out your brother, which really isn't that big of a deal. It's certainly not as big of a deal as threatening to throw citizens down the stairs because they called you Fredo. It's not as big of a deal.
Or pretending you're in a basement with COVID and then mingling with the neighbors.
As violating your COVID quarantine, and then threatening a guy on a bicycle who asks you about it, threatening to kick his ass because he has the audacity to speak to you, or the fact that you get preferential treatment because you're the brother of the governor and everybody else in the state who you are lecturing on a nightly basis doesn't get the same care and rapid testing that you do because your brother's the governor. It wasn't as big of a deal when he lied to the audience and claimed that he was coming out of the basement after a 2-week quarantine, when in reality, he was just threatening a cyclist a week earlier out on Long Island where he didn't have a mask. Not only is he lecturing everybody to wear a mask, he's literally infected with COVID and he's not wearing a mask. All of those things.
His brother, same thing. Reroute people back to nursing homes to where they can all die.
Yeah.
And then realize that you could be a threat to a current vice presidential candidate. So we got to find something on your ass and get you out the door.
Yep, exactly.
But good news. Another fallen hero, Jeffrey Toobin, who is a verb now. Because anytime you want a Toobin on a conference call, you now have a reference point and everybody knows what you're talking about. He's back and he can actually talk about it, and nobody. This is what blows my mind. When you said rub your nose in, it's like that there is no sense of irony.
Yeah, they don't care.
It is.
Toobin, that was with Jeffrey Toobin and with all of Chris Cuomo shenanigans. Mr. Potato Head never talks about it. For those who don't know, that's Brian Stelter. He has a media show, right? Reliable sources.
Reliable.
His show.
More irony.
Supposedly objectively covering the media. And he won't discuss any Project Veritas stories. He wouldn't discuss anything about the goings-on at CNN with Chris Cuomo and his shenanigans. He wouldn't discuss the Project Veritas stories outside of the CNN expose, just regular. He wouldn't give any credence or airtime for anything Project Veritas because that legitimizes them, and then they can't claim that they're some clandestine group that puts out doctored videos, which is the lie that they propagate on a daily basis. And this is a show. I mean, if you needed any more evidence that CNN is just blatantly propaganda at this point, I mean, we all say it. We know that it is. Like we can say that. But for a lot of normies out there, there comes a point where some of them get their red pill from hearing about the next nonsensical COVID policy. That's just at this point they know that it's bull. But some people will wake up just from seeing what happens with the media, from things like that. Like on CNN, you have a show where you're supposed to discuss the media, and you won't talk about Project Veritas exposing media organizations for covering up for Jeffrey Epstein. You won't talk about one of your own employees who was caught lying to the audience, claiming that he was quarantined for his COVID diagnosis.
Well, here's the thing. It's not objective. You're right about object. It's not objective. It's objectionable. I would say offensive. So you got
exactly.
You got the wrong object, but it is objectionable for sure. And okay, so while we're on that and we're worried about speech and news and spreading the message, this feels like it's 2 weeks ago.
You were talking about Tubin, and now even when you said spreading the message, I started getting visuals. So
it's an art. All right. Okay, this feels like it's forever ago, but it's actually recent. Jack Dorsey. All of a sudden, boom, I'm out. Peace out. I've got some cave I need to get into so I can, join up with the Taliban. But wow, that is a remarkable thing. And here's the problem I have. I find that Dorsey is pretty repugnant, but in many ways, it's kind of like the new guy you're going to be dealing with. Let me see. This sums it up perfectly. Dick Costello, who went back and forth with Dorsey, the policy with Twitter. We are the free speech wing of the Free Speech Party, 2011. This guy, so now it's all off. Our role is not to be bound by the First Amendment.
Yeah, no, this guy's 100 times. Jack Dorsey used to say the right things.
And he actually seemed upset about it and kind of,
He would go on Rogan. He would talk about how important it is to remain objective and not to stifle speech and to invite dissent and invite differing views. And he is against censorship and all of these things. And then the next topic of conversation in that long form interview is how they banned dead naming, which is a very targeted policy specifically engineered to cleanse the platform of people with conservative political views.
It's actually clever. If you think about it, it's clever because they can't just say, we're going to ban somebody we don't like. So what they say is, we'll find something they believe in,
exactly,
and we'll use that as a lever, and then say, that's hate speech. Okay, you're out.
That's what Tim Pool said on that appearance on Rogan. Because when they had Jack and what's your name from Twitter on, Tim was explaining that, and you could tell from the Twitter's perspective, they're like, we're telling the audience, no, that's not true. We don't ban anybody. That has nothing. That has to do with protecting people from being harmed online. It has nothing to do with politics. And the audience normally, because Tim Pool in that instance was actually on top of it, because he jumped right on them and he explained, no, it is political because you're doing exactly what you just said, Eric. You are taking a very specific topic that only applies to the furthest of the left, where you would only end up targeting the furthest of the right, and then started moving more and more over from there. And it's so overt to people who know how that stuff works. But for normies, they don't see that. They have no idea that that's going on.
Well, in fairness,
I did a video about it. This is more overt. This is the newer policy they wrote in the actual announcement. I did a tweet about it. I'll find it. They said in the actual announcement, it's the people who are most often affected by. I said they wrote, the text was, Sharing personal media, such as images or videos, can potentially violate a person's privacy and may lead to emotional or physical harm. The misuse of private media can have a disproportionate effect on women, activists, dissidents, and members of minority communities. So that's essentially, they just said, can have a disproportionate effect on leftist groups.
Are protected,
Yeah, are protected
protected
classes, which are anybody
Now-
who exhibits left-wing political bias.
By the way, in fairness of normies, because like, my old boss who got so burnt out, he finally just said, I quit. I can't deal with it. He's working 60 hours a week. And his entire exposure is the 30 minutes of news he gets a day and the little piece of a newspaper or whatever he reads. So if you have a media that's in on the game, how in the world is a normie supposed to know? They don't have time. And by the way, that's why they mislead on the headlines. And every article is like half the articles I read, I'll read the headline. And then about paragraph 4 or 5, it directly contradicts the freaking headline in the same article. It's one of my favorite tactics, but nobody has time
And the
for
Chiron on TV is notorious for that. On MSNBC, Nicole Wallace, the Chiron, said Republicans downplay danger from new super duper Omicron Autobot Decepticon variant, right? And it was, or I think it was play down concerns or play down. I think it was Republicans are downplaying concerns over the Omicron variant. And 20 seconds into the interview with whatever doctor she had on, he said, it's important that we mitigate, people's concerns. We don't want people to overreact here. This isn't that big of a deal. And it's just funny because people who are watching that or who briefly flip on the channel are going to see that Chiron and say, oh, the Republicans are at it again. They're just denying that COVID exists. Meanwhile, the doctor on the screen is saying the exact same thing that Republicans are allegedly saying.
He's a Republican doctor, dude. You didn't
people see that Chiron and they change the channel and that's it. They assume, all right, well, that's the story. They don't need to look any further. They don't need to read. They don't even need to watch the rest of what they're watching.
It would be funny if you could line up closed captioning and cryons too, where the cryon is saying one thing and the closed captioning is saying the opposite. Yeah. And I'm sure that probably happens quite a lot, but I don't have time to sit there and do it. But it would be funny to just sit there and get screen caps of that going all the time. Be like deceptively dangerous.
I have a whole thread dedicated to media's brainwashing. And I talk about going through different examples where they completely fabricated narratives for years. But I explain sort of how they do it step by step, because they can't just tell a lie. They have to set the narrative they want to set. But then they can't have people being convinced that you're lying for a couple of reasons. If they want to convince you that the sky is green, they can tell you the sky is green, but there's two problems. They run the risk of you finding out the sky is actually blue, right? But more importantly, more long-term, if you find out that the sky is actually blue, you now know that the media is lying to you and they're trying to tell you and sell you a lie, and they can't afford to lose their credibility long-term. So after they set that narrative, they have to attack anybody who's providing alternative information. Anybody who's providing any challenge to their desired dominant narrative must be attacked. But it's not enough just to attack the information they're putting out. They want to invalidate whatever information is going to come out. So what'll happen is you'll notice if you're talking to somebody from the left on social media, you can send them a story and their response is, I'm not even going to read that. That's from Fox.
Yeah. Media Matters tore that up. I went to the fact checker. But here's the other trick, by the way. That's one. That's after the fact. But then there's how the message gets propagated to begin with. And I don't know if you've ever read Ryan Holiday's Trust Me, I'm Lying, but it's a phenomenal book. And there are different methods to getting the story out there. But one of the tricks is that every reporter on Twitter follows other junior reporters in smaller publications. So if you could slide a story into a smaller publication, like Joe Bob's Digest, whatever the hell it is, right? Then somebody from another publication will pick it up and then write about it. And that person is at CNBC, for example, or whatever it is. Then everybody else will pile on and report that CNBC said that. And that's why if you read the stories, and earlier, I don't know if you heard, but I was going through literally talking about the SUV. SUV slammed into Wisconsin parade. SUV smashes, SUV plows, car plows, SUV drives into, SUV plows, SUV tore through, SUV, and it's literally, you've got one story and and you have a whole echo chamber. So that is how it propagated to begin with, and then what you were saying absolutely is how you
So
maintain
what
that.
you said is part of it. I don't want to go through this entire thing. It's like 25 tweets, this thread.
Yeah, please.
It actually started was most of this was actually just a text to my dad, because I used to be a lefty purely because I believe the media. So people who move from the left to the right will usually pretty much always tell you their red pill moment had nothing to do with politics or realizing a certain perspective of theirs might be wrong. There might be a better idea out there. The marketplace of ideas brought them further to the right. That's usually not what it is. It's much simpler than that. People on the right who used to be on the left woke up to the media. As soon as you have that epiphany and you see what the media is and what they're doing, you can't unsee it. Every single word they say is it's part of a very carefully constructed and engineered plan. It's an incredibly precise and complex engineered plan to manipulate tens and hundreds of millions of people. And once you see that, every single word they say, you can see right through it. And that's usually what wakes people up. So people who are members of my family who still watch the news or still believe something that they hear on CNN, and they'll send me an article and I could debunk it within minutes because I know how they lie and why they lie and things like that. So I essentially had taken the content that I had sent to my dad, trying to convince him how manipulative the media is and how he can disregard what he's being told, and I put it into this thread. So we don't have to go through it all, but people should definitely check it out on my Twitter. I'll retweet it now just so it's fresh on my timeline. So if you go to my Twitter page, you'll see it right at the top. But yeah, I go through step by step. Like I said before, the narrative gets set by the trusted sources, and then they fact check any evidence damaging to their narrative. Then they neutralize the opposing information, like Tucker's a white supremacist. So if you watch Tucker Carlson, you're literally a Nazi. So they're telling you that you're an evil person if you just watch ideas being delivered to you from this person. And when you cannot see certain ideas on any medium, any social media platform, any news outlet, none of them, you can't find certain ideas on any of them, because if they even said those ideas, they would be told, all right, well, now you're a Nazi, now you're a bigot, now you're a racist. So it's just completely mum. And that banned speech ends up dividing people to the point where you're told, if you just listen to those ideas, if you hear somebody telling you those ideas, you must cover your ears and avert your eyes, because if you hear those ideas, that'll make you into one of them. That'll make you a bigot. So watching Tucker Carlson makes you a Nazi. Is what
You got to work on Mike Bruno. He's a regular, and it'll take you a while to red pill him, like probably 2 lifetimes.
Yeah, well, this is the process. So if you check it out, it goes all these steps. And like you said, here's actually, you know what? Because you mentioned it, let me show you this one tweet. Because part of what I listed was, I said, I went through everything and I explained, if you look up the same text on DuckDuckGo and say vaccine heart attack, these are the results. And you can see there's a lot of studies.
Well, now I'll never get freaking approved on
You do the same thing on Google and you have completely different results, because most people just Google things and they think that if they tell me I'm wrong, I'll say, like, why do you think that's true? And they'll say, just Google it, bro. All right, well, if you were to Google vaccine heart attack, you would walk away from it saying there's no justification to suggest that there's any causal or even correlational relationship between heart issues and the vaccine. That's totally a right-wing conspiracy theory. If you use any other search engine besides Google, you will immediately see there's a substantial number, not only of news articles, but of medical journals. There are a lot of current studies that are looking into a pretty clear causal relationship between.
Dude, I could go. You know what? I'll hold on. I'll go even easier for
that.
you.
And then here's the one other thing I wanted to show you, because you had brought this up. This is pretty much in one image. Somebody put this together, and this is pretty much how it works. You have Robert Malone, who's a doctor who was integral to the development, one of the founders or the inventors of mRNA technology for vaccines, the way the messaging works. He did a video, and it shows it on July 28th, and he makes his first major media appearance on Bannon's War Room. The very next day, the Wikipedia page is created for him by an anonymous contributor, portraying him as a misinformation person, somebody who distributes misinformation, right? And then that day, when you Google his name, now the first result you see on Google is it automatically uses what's in the top Wikipedia paragraph. If you were to just Google the name Robert Malone, when this didn't exist 24 hours beforehand, it will now say he's a known, misinformation purveyor or something like that. And this is instantaneous. So you have one of them sets the narrative, they all start piling on, and there's also one source will feed the same story to every news outlet, and it gives the perception that there are all these sources, and we've independently confirmed CNN's reporting, and then NBC says, and we've independently confirmed New York Times. We've independently verified the New York Times story.
Yeah, because they look at each other.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very easy to do.
There's one guy who's leaking the same information to all of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, and you can even go even more surfacey. This one, it's pretty much hasn't changed. Search for something like white couple under Google Images.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised. And compared to like DuckDuckGo, you'll be like, what? Those are odd results.
Yeah. I'll do it right now. I'll show people.
Yeah, it is quite remarkable to
what did I do? I should be back in a
don't know.
second. Hold on. You'll see me back in a sec. There we go.
No problem.
I'm back up, right?
No, not yet.
Really?
He broke StreamYard. That's fine. I can show it. Here's white couple in DuckDuckGo at a basic glance. It's not 100% perfect either, but then we can go to Google and let's just type white couple and look at the images. And well, I don't know. I know that race is a construct, but it's some odd results in there. And there's a whole laundry list of different things like that you can find. And I do recommend everybody do searches, in impromptu mode or incognito mode wherever you can, and use DuckDuckGo. Even use Bing. I mean, I know nobody likes Bing, but it's weird that the Microsoft is the underdog, but it's still better.
Yeah, no. So this is what's more interesting. If you look just within Google, this is something that doesn't happen on other I'm not sharing anymore. Hold on.
No.
I need to reshare. So if you actually search for white couple on Google or black couple on Google, you'll see you get pretty much all interracial results when you search for white couple, pretty much every single picture. Or the only time that there is a genuinely all white couple, it's something like the McCloskeys, where they're painting them as violent maniacs, right?
Yeah, sure.
But every other one, almost every single other example is an interracial couple. If you search for black couple, they're all black couples.
Yes.
So,
and Asian couple and down the line.
But obviously, it's not just race. But yeah, you can, if you notice those differences, it's insane. It's insane how overt it is. It's right in your face. This is social media, search engines, but information is a weapon, right? So it's warfare.
Chase Hughes. Chase Hughes is in the audience right now, and he highly recommends Bernays. And Bernays wrote a couple books on that, on propaganda. You'd have to look them up. I forgot the names of the books, but have you heard of Gel-Man amnesia?
Yeah,
because that's another way. Yeah, that's another way that I think people get quote red pilled, is when they finally realize that, for example, you work with crypto.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that most things written about crypto are probably incorrect.
Yeah, well, the better example, because everybody understands it, that I always give, because I'm an IT guy too. So I'm an IT consultant. Okay. So I do networking, and I do smart homes. So I design and set up and configure and program really complex smart homes, multi-million-dollar homes with Crestron Savant control force systems, full home automation, so audio, video. I do all the networking, audio, video distribution, control systems for lighting, HVAC. But in any case, I don't know why I'm getting into that, but I do IT stuff, and that's something that more people can relate to. So if you see a story where CNN is reporting, anytime they're talking about somebody getting hacked, and they always use the wrong terminology because they don't know what they're talking about. So you'll have some guys writing an article trying to explain. Sometimes they have people who have expertise in these fields, and they do sound competent, but usually they don't. So they'll start going off about how there's this guy who was hacked, and they're using the wrong terminology and using like the word phishing scam, when in reality it was some
Could
sort
be
of malicious
smishing
software.
because they use a text, or it could be
So somebody will install malicious software, and then they'll say like, oh, there was a phishing scam. So you hear that and you're like, well, that's obviously not what happened in this situation. So what the hell is wrong with you people? That's not how you should describe it. So then 5 minutes later, I can hear them reporting on a story about COVID, and I might think, oh, well, the media is credible. I guess they're right about COVID. Well, I just heard them talk about the thing that I'm an expert in, and what they were saying made no sense. And they didn't use the correct terminology. In theory, they were describing something that's not even physically possible. But now 5 minutes later, I'm going to trust them and assume that they're credible telling me about some other topic. So that's the effect where once you realize it and it sort of hits you, it's like, well, if I was a doctor, I probably would realize that they might not be honest about that. And then they might be talking about a legal matter. And if you're an attorney, you might say, well, what they're saying makes no sense. So once you have some specialty in those fields, you start to pick up on it. But I agree. I think that is a big red pill moment. I think the more people wake up to the media.
Well, in Rittenhouse has actually red pilled a lot of people.
Yeah, I think
because
so. All the people who said, I can't believe I just found out that
right. And I mean, over a year, it's been, no, but it's very, very, very cool that some people are picking up on it and admitting it. They're saying, I've spent all this time and I thought everybody he shot was black.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one.
Openly said the entire time. I had no idea until today. That,
or the other one, the Gage Grosskreutz had a gun. Was it I have trouble calling somebody Charlemagne the God, which is crazy. I think he tweeted that, or he was clipped saying that. Yeah, I just found out that he had a gun.
Yeah, they all still think that he drove a tank across state lines with an automatic bazooka, whatever the hell nonsense it was. But the across state lines thing.
And you're forgetting his mother drove him across state lines.
His mother drove him across state lines and gave him his lunchbox and a bazooka and told him to go hunt all sorts of minorities. And then he went and shot 79 black babies. And oh, Jesus, these people are insane. It's so ludicrous. And most of the time, and this is something where people woke up even before the trial, most of the time that kind of kicks people in the ass, and it's just like you know that something's wrong. So I think there are a lot of red pills just from the trial, but even before the trial. I think the trial helped that a lot too. But until the media is completely defunct, I don't care. The media needs to completely cease to exist. We need to completely reboot. The media needs to be gone. Just completely gone. I've done more journalism in the last month. I did a tweet about this yesterday. I've broken stories as if I was a journalist. I put out exclusive audio that I got of a phone call with Lin Wood, where he essentially admitted that his defense that he gave the Daily Beast in response to what Kyle Rittenhouse said about him was a lie. Daily Beast talked to Lin Wood and printed his comments in response to what Kyle Rittenhouse had said about him. And they didn't post any audio. They didn't have any phone calls. Like I have sources. I'm able to get information and put out these stories and like legitimate breaking news stories that some IT guy and crypto trader on Twitter is doing more actual journalism than these journalists who are making money they don't deserve and doing a horrible job. And all they're doing is putting out the Cliff's Notes. They're taking what Kyle Rittenhouse says on Tucker and they're condensing it into a summary, and that's their article. They're not talking to the various subjects within it like they did with Lin Wood. They're not talking to those subjects and then getting evidence to either back up or contradict the comments that Lin Wood or anybody else makes. They're not doing that. They could have gotten the information I had access to. It was out there. If you knew who to talk to and where to look, they could have gotten their hands on it. And other stuff too. I've gotten other stuff. I've gotten emails in the case of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I've gotten documents that were submitted to the state, official complaints about DA Binger.
By the way, I don't want to ping on him because in general, I like the guy, but it is true. Tim Pool's kind of leaned into reading headlines anymore and not pulling as many sources.
Yeah, well, he's been some of the stuff with Chad Reed, he's repeating some of like the most nonsensical. I don't even want to really talk about it. People have started bringing up in that particular story some insane, delusional conspiracy theories and arguments that I can't even explain it. They don't just not make sense, but it defies reason to the point where I don't believe that these people are real. Or today somebody said, okay, and this is several people who said this. Oh, he fired another warning shot earlier on when he first came out. He fired a warning shot. So the entire thing was provoked by Kyle Carruth because he had fired that first warning shot before Reed had ran up to him and assaulted him and threatened to kill him with his own gun. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then a few people piled on. They're like, yeah, it's on this video. And Chad's ex-wife, or Chad's wife, his wife, no, ex-wife now that he's dead, I guess. But she said that they or his stepdaughter or whatever said that he fired another warning shot.
They're also saying that the kid was in the house.
So all right. So that's a separate thing. The warning shot thing. The guy gives me the video and he's like, "Here, see, you're wrong and I'm right." And I'm like, "Dude,
give me a timestamp."
He walks out of the house and he gives me a timestamp. And he walks out of the house and Kyle Carruth has the carbine pointed down and you hear a sound like this. Like when you're recording something and your phone like bumps up against the steering wheel and you hear like a minor little bump. And he's like, see, that's a gunshot. And like a second later, there's an actual gunshot on the footage. So you have a reference. You're like, oh, that's what a gunshot sounds like.
And it's the same footage, right?
It's the same video. And if you go back 2 seconds, the first gunshot doesn't sound like the gunshot. Plus,
and you're like, let me take a picture of the wave.
So, and they're just like, they're creating this fake narrative, whatever they have to do just to justify their position. And then the other one, again, is with the custody thing. People are like, yeah, no, there's Kyle Carruth was a party to a kidnapping because Reed's ex-wife didn't drop off her son on time. So they're like kidnapping. This is like a kidnapping. And as far as Reed's concerned, he had every right to rescue his son.
I don't know where they're getting that from, though.
Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't know where they're getting that.
No, that's not how it works. If people have disagreements every day, custody
things all the time. Yeah. Good Lord.
People, if you could go into your ex-partner's significant other's house and they lost all their property rights, you were allowed to take over their property and you couldn't be trespassed from their property. You were justified in assaulting them and threatening to kill them and essentially have carte blanche to do whatever you want because your kid wasn't dropped off on time. Like, and Tim Pool was, I believe, repeating at least some of that. I don't think he was being as hyperbolic as others. I don't think Tim Pool, to my knowledge, I haven't seen the videos. The chat can tell us. I don't think Tim was saying like, yeah, they were like literally kidnapping the kid. But I know that he leaned into the custody thing. People have been fixating on this custody thing, and it's just a distraction. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. The only thing that matters, there's a couple things. If you're talking about the legality of the case, the justification from a legal perspective, purely looking at the statutory requirements in order to use deadly force,
it's muddy.
Thing that matters is that last 589 milliseconds. If Kyle Carruth was he's justified if he had perceived an imminent threat of severe bodily harm or death at that point in time. If he perceived that threat, then it's justified. If he didn't, then it's not justified. And that's the question that needs to be answered.
And it's a hard question, just to put it out there.
Sure. I mean,
the reason I had the
policy, I kind of hit my limit just seeing the back and forth. I sort of got to the point where I just threw down the gauntlet and I was like, you know what? I'm done. At this point, my official position is he was justified. If you believe that under the law that he wasn't justified because of how much time he waited before he shot him, that's fine. You could have that opinion, and maybe you're right. Maybe the way the law is written, because of the amount of time that elapsed and how much of a threat he represented, maybe Kyle shot him and was totally not justified under the law. If that's true, it's a bad law. That's my position. Whether or not he was justified legally, I don't care. He was justified in every other conceivable way. And I did a video explaining it from Kyle's perspective, and some people actually came around because a lot of people are stuck where they were initially fed this narrative that Kyle was the bad guy who was trying to keep keep this guy's son from him, and he's this horrible guy.
Well, that's all irrelevant.
Is this great
That's all
guy who
irrelevant.
just wanted to see his son, and he was the victim. And that's just not true. If you look at the facts, Kyle is a law-abiding citizen. He's a law-abiding citizen, a member of Second Amendment groups. He knows and respects the law. He doesn't break the law, as far as I can tell. I've done checks into it. Versus Chad Reed, who is a convicted felon who went to prison for stealing almost $500,000 along with his old ex-wife, not the current ex-wife with the children, but an old ex-wife. They embezzled $500,000. He had laundered $250,000 of it. He got, I think it was 18 months in federal prison. He has domestic abuse all over he has domestic arrests and convictions on his record. So he's not the good guy in this case, right? He was trespassing, and even if he was there to pick up his son, that's totally fine. I get that. That gives him a reason of why he should have been there. He totally was justified to go there, maybe, right? He was justified to show up to Kyle Cruz's house and say, "Hey, is my son here?" Like, that's totally fine.
And he's even to justify that, and he's also justified to argue and say it was supposed to be this time.
Yeah, he's justified to do all those things. He's not justified to trespass. Once he's told he has to leave, he has to leave. Right. He's not justified to run up and get in somebody's face. He's not justified to say, "I'm going to take your gun and kill you with it." He's not justified to push. He's not justified to shove. He's not justified to grab that gun and throw somebody off the porch. None of those things are things that he's entitled to do because his son was late to be dropped off. That's incomprehensibly insane. And people have been spreading that around as if, like, my ex-wife didn't drop my kid off on time, so I can go berserk and start threatening to kill people. Like, what? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. And Nick Ricchetta, on his stream, he was pretty much saying exactly what I've been saying. Where people were asking these questions in super chats, and he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, my brain can't compute how certain people.
Let me back up for a minute, because this is where I get confused.
All right, that's enough. I'm going to see.
No, I know. Well, Bronca is, opposite on that. And this is where I'm confused, because I actually fall in the sense that I think the Arbery, that the McMichaels technically were wrong because they were pursuing him and everything else. So I found it very surprising that it was okay. And he supported the Arbery. I mean, he supported the McMichaels in that case for self-defense.
Yeah.
When he was unarmed and he was chased down before he did anything. And in my mind, he was kind of cornered. I don't know how else to interpret that. But then on the flip side, he's saying that in that 0.6 of a second, or even 0.275 tenths of a second, because half of that time was flight time. And so that makes it very hard. I was just very surprised that he would come down the other way.
So one of the reasons that took me so far over the edge with this case, and why I've just kind of gone all in, I've essentially gone all in and said, guys, Kyle is a law-abiding citizen and a Second Amendment supporting conservative who did nothing wrong and broke zero laws. That's who he is. He's the good guy. Chad Reed is a convicted felon who broke every single law he was capable of breaking while on his property. He was trespassing. Then when told to leave, he refused to leave. Then he ran into his habitation. The front porch is, for all intents and purposes, under the law, the same as your master bedroom in Texas. The habitation includes that front covered porch. So by running onto the porch, it was the same as running into his house and jumping on his bed. So he then ran into his house, essentially, right? He got in his face. He pushed up against him. That's assault. He said, "I'm going to take your gun and kill you with it." He then grabbed the gun. Every single possible step he could have possibly taken up to killing him, he did. Chad Reed did all of those things except kill Kyle Carruth. He assaulted him. He grabbed his gun. He threatened to kill him. Every one of those steps this guy took. He broke every law he could possibly break in that situation and escalated it to every step he could possibly escalate it to until he eventually got himself killed. And people are saying that he's the good guy and Kyle's the evil one who broke. No, it doesn't make any sense. But the thing that really set me off was what were you just saying before that? The timing thing.
Well, and I was just saying the Arbory, the McMichaels and Arbory thing.
Yeah, but specifically because you mentioned the timing of the
right. Well, I was saying if you want to be realistic, it wasn't actually the full 0.6 seconds.
I understand because he was flying through the air. Yeah, but he didn't have that much time. But what really set me off and put me over that edge was I decided that that's actually the part that affects me the most. So think about this. I cannot accept that because Andrew Branca and everybody said when he fired the warning shot.
Hold on. We're not ripping into the guy. We're just stating an opinion. We have a lot of respect for Branca, so calm down. Seriously.
So this is the thing, Terry. Check this out. Branca and I agree on pretty much everything about this. This is what people don't realize. Branca says that when Reed ran up and was in Kyle's face and then grabbed at the gun and
the warning shot, if he killed him, it would have been.
Branca said at that point when he shot that warning shot, he would have been justified in killing Reed, right? Mm-hmm. So we agree on that. We agree on everything. I agree with Branca on every detail except all the way at the end after he gets thrown and he's like 10 feet away. Branca says when you're 10 feet away at that point, he should have thought, okay, I have time. I'm reevaluating. Okay, I'm not going to shoot because I'm no longer under threat. And I think that half a second isn't enough time to make that change. That's literally the only thing we disagree about, just to be clear. So I'm with Branca on his analysis across the board, except that one detail. And people think that like I've been disagreeing with him on everything. I really haven't. But just to finish my thought, the part that I can't accept is that you would be 100% legally justified in killing somebody, and then a second later, you go to prison for the rest of your life. To give you an analogy, that's like you're shooting at me. You shoot 50 rounds at me. Then you stop to reload, and I shoot you while you're reloading. And then you're like, oh, I wasn't a threat anymore because I had stopped to reload. I was no longer actively shooting, so now you go to prison for the rest of your life. That's the part that's insane.
I don't care for the analogy because there'd have to be other factors. Like if I know that you are reloading and I know that you're incapable of shooting at that point, and I have the drop on you, and I just shoot. No, but that's why I hate analogies. In some ways, I love them and I hate them. But
the point wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't trying to compare it that way. It was more just to illustrate the absurdity of saying that you could kill a guy right now and you're totally cool. But if you delay and you decide to wait a little bit longer before you kill him, if you wait 150 milliseconds before you kill him, you go to prison for the rest of your life. Life's over. If you wait another 250 milliseconds after that, you're good. You can shoot him again. The circumstances dictate you can shoot him. If you wait one more second and you shoot him, prison for the rest of your life. That's insane. If you're justified in taking somebody's life, I don't care if they're 50 feet apart. If 5 minutes goes by, if you're justified, okay, and maybe 5 minutes, fine. But if you're justified in taking another life, you can't say to somebody because your trigger finger pulled the trigger slightly too slow. You didn't work on your split times at the range. So now you go to prison for the rest of your life. If you were a little quicker to squeeze that trigger, if you pull that trigger a little bit quicker, you would be totally fine. You'd have your whole family and whatever. But you were a little too slow. Now you go to prison forever and you're a murderer. That's crazy. That's unacceptable. Any law that would allow that to happen to somebody is unacceptable.
I got a poll going on this. So I have a poll going on this, and it is literally 50-50, 196 votes. Dead. 50. No, it's not like the Viva and Barnes one where it's 54-46. No, it is literally 50-50. Exactly. And this one's hard, man. I hear where you're coming from.
That's the thing. It's really not. People, Branca's not saying anything. He's not even challenging what I'm saying. He's just saying completely isolating the law because that's all he cares about. He's not saying the law is just or it's not. I'm saying I don't care what the law says. I'm saying he's justified regardless of whether or not he felt that there was a threat at that very specific split second. Because if he was justified 200 milliseconds sooner, he's still justified 200 milliseconds later. If a guy is holding a gun and he's pointing it at you and he drops the gun and it takes your brain 200 milliseconds to realize that he dropped it. And when you pull the trigger, technically he's already released the gun and it's falling down to the ground, so he's no longer armed. By that logic, you would be a murderer. But if you had just shot him a second earlier and you didn't wait for him to drop the gun, then you would be fine.
I understand.
That's
I understand
crazy.
where you're coming from, because Bronco also said that if he had paused slightly longer and we knew that Chad's step was coming toward him, one step, because there was a question of his lifting his leg. So if he did complete a step, then he said it would be justified again. So that's what you're saying. This little pocket of time, you're questioning, well, why is it this pocket of time? If he could complete the step, then that would be good. But Kyle didn't feel like he had time to wait for this. I don't know.
No,
And
that's the thing. It shouldn't matter. When somebody, put it this way, in the case of Rosenbaum and Rittenhouse, right?
that was clear and that was easy.
Okay, how about this? If the point where the DA was saying that Kyle aimed the rifle at Zeminski, if at that point we see a crystal clear video right now that shows Kyle came around the corner and he pointed his gun right at Rosenbaum and said, "If I see you again, I'll kill you," right?
Mhm.
And we found out that Kyle actually did that. Not a single person in this chat would say that Kyle's guilty. Every single person would say that as soon as Rosenbaum started chasing Kyle,
Right, because he
Kyle ran
retreated.
away, and
He
from
was
that point
retreating.
forward, he's allowed to defend himself, right? He has just because he might have technically, everybody in the chat would agree that he's completely justified. They're using those same arguments that were used against Rittenhouse, in this particular situation, against Carruth. Much like Rosenbaum chased down an armed person and tried to take the gun from him, he made his bed. So I don't care if Kyle pointed the gun at him. I don't care if Kyle threatened Rosenbaum. I don't care if Kyle Rittenhouse did any of those things the DA accused him of doing. He could have done all the things that he was accused of doing. He was chased by somebody who was chasing an armed person, threatening to kill that armed person, and trying to take a gun from an armed person. Rosenbaum made his bed, and I don't care what Kyle Rittenhouse did preceding that.
Here's the
Rosenbaum
thing.
made his
I
bed,
think
he deserved what
I
he got.
think everybody
Same thing.
except for Binger agrees on Rittenhouse. Almost all, pretty much LawTube agrees on it. Even who is it? Destiny, who's kind of a semi-lefty, he agrees on it. Others agree on it. The Anna Kasparian kind of had to back off a little bit and agree on it. So, okay, everybody agrees on it. The jury agreed on it. He was 100% acquitted. There's no question about Rittenhouse. I don't think that one was complicated. I think that one in a lot of ways was easy, and he never should have been charged technically. I think Arbery's muddier. I think that this one's muddier. And, I comparing to Arbery is more in my mind, like with Broncos, like how was Arbery okay, but this one's not. But I don't know. I mean, again, I do have issues on the way. I agree with you on all that and the technicality and the legality of that, and he had every right to and all that. But as I said, and I know we talked about Sunday, I am troubled about the warning shot. That just has always bothered me, that, and maybe it's because of my military training and things like that. It's like, if either you shoot to kill, if you have time to shoot to warn or shoot at a leg or shoot at a limb, then you're not truly under threat. And
Okay,
that's just,
so-
this is my personal life experience. And remember, you've acknowledged your bias, and that's my bias, is in that sense that when he did that warning shot, when Chad, as big as he was on him, could have grappled him, grabbed him, was grabbing for the gun and all that, he did not find that to be enough of a threat to do any more than a warning shot. That's the main thing that gives me a little bit of a pause, because
do you know what you're essentially saying? You're essentially saying that you find it inconceivable.
I didn't say that. I said it gives me pause.
No. What I'm saying is, what people who make that argument are saying is, I find it inconceivable that he could not want to kill him. So in other words, like, there's a very easy answer to that. Kyle didn't want to kill the guy. If he wanted to kill him, he would have just shot him. He not only did Kyle not break the law, not only did Reed break every law imaginable and take every step he could have possibly taken to get himself killed. He committed suicide, as far as I'm concerned. Not only are those two things true, Kyle went out of his way to not kill him. He was 100% justified in shooting him in the face right at that point in time, and he shot the ground in front of him, thinking to himself, obviously I don't know what he's thinking, but you shoot him, you shoot the ground at that point, likely to be like, please, maybe if I do this, I don't have to kill this guy because I really don't want to take a life. But people have decided that Kyle's an evil.
I haven't decided any of that.
No sense.
And
So that
again, now
argument-
you're projecting, so careful. I didn't decide that. I just said it gives me pause. And then I can also argue the other way and say that the 8 feet or 10 feet does imply that Chad was not exactly a weak person. And that took an incredible amount of strength. And maybe that was enough to tip Kyle because, oh my God, I've got the Hulk coming after me. He threw me a long way. Oh my God. So I get both. But I don't know all the facts. And I really wish his girlfriend, she was there filming. Where's her footage? I want to see her
said
footage.
she was filming. I don't know if she was. The angle where she's holding her phone, it really looks like she's actually texting somebody. Like this is what's going on right now. Because if you look closely, she's not holding it up like somebody who is filming it. She has 2 hands on it, which usually means somebody's texting. And it was angled a little bit too low to be recording it. So everybody's been saying that. But my opinion, just based on the angle of how she's holding it, and again, the 2 hands thing is a big deal for me. I don't think she was actually filming it.
Okay, well, it could be, but the 2 hands things, by the way, I know a lot of people who film with 2 hands, especially when they have a big phone and smaller hands, and a lot of women do. So just to point it out.
I mean, just so everybody knows, he's not getting convicted anyway. There's 0 chance.
Well, no, but he could get the wrongful death suit.
Yeah, absolutely. If they charge him, like I think I'm probably up to like 40 people now I've talked to who live in the panhandle of Texas. Not one of them, and some of them thinks that he's 100% guilty and should get convicted. Not one of the people I've talked to thinks that there's like within any realm of possibility that he would get convicted. Unless
the attorney general comes down and, if it went to Austin, then he could be in trouble. But yes, I agree. And Barnes even said that if you get on somebody's property and you attack them in Texas, you just won a Darwin Award.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that too. But, it's an interesting case. And I don't have a perfect answer for that. In general, I probably lean to just justified because we have to go with a reasonable doubt. And and I think there is a doubt in there. So the same way that I'm vacillating, I say, I'm troubled by this and that, I would probably fall on that just because there's enough of, we have to say guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, I do have some doubt.
Oh yeah, there's obviously, I don't think they can prove that he was guilty, but just based purely on the jury and where they live, he wouldn't be found guilty. My thing is, again, like, I don't care about the law. Like, my belief is I don't care if he sensed that there was a threat at that point. I don't care why anybody was there. I don't care what happened before he was shot.
Oh, I don't care about any of that. That's noise.
In general, right? The general rule, the law should read this. This is what the law should be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at your house, somebody enters your property, assaults you, threatens to kill you, and grabs your gun, whether or not he felt that he was justified, whether or not his son was late to get dropped off is irrelevant. If those events happen, you can blow him away. Doesn't matter if it's 3 seconds later or 1 second later. As long as it's within a minute and he's still on your property, you can blow him away.
By the way, I think Ziggy's right. This is the bottom line message that is sad. What bothers her most about all of this is a child lost his father and now will have to be both in the same house with the man who shot his dad. This is not a good life going ahead for all involved. Yeah, it is a tragedy.
Sad. I mean, it's just a function of who you. I don't understand how anybody. I understand making the argument like legally it's not justified. That's fine. You can make that argument. I don't care. You can say he was not justified under the law. It's totally fine. I agree with you in some certain respects, but what you can't deny is like whose fault it actually is. Like Chad Reed did everything he possibly could do in that situation.
Right, he instigated it, and it backfired.
Instigated is an understatement. He was told to leave. He didn't leave. He then ran up on and attacked him. He then brushed up against him, and then he pushed him, and then he said, "I'm going to kill you," and then he grabbed the gun. It's like, I don't understand how we're even having this conversation. Nick was saying the same thing on his stream. I feel the same way. I just want to scream. I'm like, how is this even a debate? This is insane that people are even debating this. I just can't understand it. I can't, I don't get it. If somebody came onto my property and did all of those things, and you were trying to say that I shouldn't have shot him because his kid was late to be dropped off, or because like I walked outside holding a gun in case something happened at my own house, my own property, while somebody's threatening me. It's just like, why would those little arguments even be necessary? Like, don't go to someone's house. Don't stay there and refuse to leave once they've told you to.
Mhm.
Don't run up into their house. Don't assault them. Don't threaten to take their gun and kill them with it. Don't grab the gun, and then don't throw that person off of their porch. Like, so many things he could have just not done, and everything would have been fine. I feel like people are like a million miles apart from me on this, and that's fine. They're entitled to.
Well, no. I think that they're I think that they're
I don't.
No, I
understand.
think they're 0.6 of a second apart from you. Technically.
But that's the thing. I don't. That's what I'm saying is I'm conceding all that. I will concede it all. I'll say he was under no threat. Under the law, he's 100% guilty. Chad Reed represented no threat anymore after they were 10 feet apart. Kyle shot him because he was angry. I don't care. I'll admit, I'll concede all those things. My position at this point is just, if you do all those things, if you take all those steps, you are begging to die. You commit suicide. That's him committing suicide. Just like I said the same thing about Rosenbaum. In the case of Rosenbaum, I said Rosenbaum committed suicide. He took every step he could possibly take to get himself killed.
Fair enough. Well, on that note, we haven't solved it. We probably never will. The poll is sitting at 50-50 again. It drifted for a second down with you down slightly. It's back to 50-50. We'll see where it goes. And for now, stick around for a minute,
I'm
Jesse.
pretty sure if you did a poll and asked everybody, what's my position? I bet 95% of people who disagree with me overall would get my position wrong. They have no idea what I actually think. Even after explaining all this, I bet 95% of the people that disagree with me still think that I'm arguing that he was legally justified and still experienced a threat after that 0.6 of a second, which again, I'm not. I don't care about the law or any of that. He's justified because of the whole situation. And when somebody does all those things, you can kill them, and you're not going to go to prison for the rest of your life because of a minor delay in time. It's not feasible. We can't have a legal system that works that way, where you go to prison for the rest of your life because your trigger finger was a little too slow that day. But I'll say something. I'll say something in a tweet, and I'll get hammered with replies.
What's a tweet,
Not
dude?
a single person understands what I said. No, everybody thinks that I said something completely different from what I said, which is why I just went all in at that point. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm not going to try to thread the needle anymore. I'm just taking the most extreme position I possibly could, and that's it. That's my position. Take it or leave it.
Fair enough. On that note, folks, if you want to see more engaging debate, we talked about this Sunday too, by the way, so check the channel out. And we had more discussion. We had Legal Mindset on, as well as Joe Neerman, who's been on the other side, Good Logic. And Joe is covering the Ghislaine Maxwell, and I think I'm cutting into his time right now. So until next time, Jesse, stick around for a second. I've got an outro. And everybody, please subscribe before you go. It really does help.